Okay, well, made it to the election. And I just got to wait and see what happens afterward. Let's see where we stand. Still basically not sure. I keep working on your research papers and everything in the meantime. And here's what we got. Here's what early voting looks like. Of course, they're still collecting things. They're still getting mail-in ballots in all the country. In fact, by law, mail-in ballots have to take priority in the mail, so packages and things are delayed. But 85.6 million people voted early. 46 million per person. 39 of the 67 million mail ballots returned, or at least returned and reported so far. That's more than half the number of people who voted in the 2020 election. It's indication of some very heavy turnout in a lot of areas. One thing about this University of Florida website shows us is not just the total early vote. 9 million in Florida, 4 million in Georgia, 4.4 million in North Carolina, 8 million in California. Of course, we're all waiting for that to juggernaut, 190,000 in Rhode Island. Look at this. Almost half the states, more than half the people who voted in 2020 voted early. So people are interested. They are taking advantage of the early voting when it takes place. So here in Arkansas, 70.8% of people who voted early, 70.8% of the total percent of the 2024 early vote compared to the total 2020 vote. 866,000 people who did vote early total this year. 72% in Tennessee, 80% in Georgia. Very heavy turnout, about at least 600,000 early voters. 82% in Florida, 80% in North Carolina, almost 80% in Texas, about half in California. Pennsylvania, not really early voters up there. They're very heavy turnout reported there today. 2% in Ohio, and 60% in Michigan. So as you can see, candidate needs to win in early voting. Here's especially true. 72% turnout in Colorado, in New Mexico, 75% in Colorado. So we can know about the results by 10 o'clock tonight. We can know by Friday. As how it turns out. Early results that are available aren't very many. Had the famous midnight voting in Dixville Notch, New Hampshire. What was the result? Tie. 3-3. There aren't a lot of people who live there, so what can we tell from those results? Nothing.
The sample size is very small.
Very small. So it's basically an anecdotal sample. But they got together, they had a nice time, they went home. Waltham is a territory, but they have a straw poll. A straw poll basically is just an unofficial vote of the regular territorial legislature elections. So Harris won there. But what does that count for? Nothing. It's, you got to understand, Guam politics, they don't really match up with politics on the mainland. They kind of do their own thing. They really don't pay much attention to it. What's the world saying about it right now? Canadian Broadcasting Company deciphering the polls ahead of the U.S. presidential election. Finally know what the mystery walls on Newfoundland beaches are. And of course, Canada, it's got to be hockey news. 3-on-3 hockey in the 2030 Winter Olympics, that's big news there. Makes good, but not a lot on this. But not a lot on the election yet, because there really isn't a lot to report. British Broadcasting Company, there's always that traditional picture of the candidates casting their ballot in different areas. Trump's cast his, even though he is a convicted felon, was allowed to vote for it. Yeah, that surprised a lot of people. A lot of states convicted felons can't.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah.
I do, but I don't really.
States Harris and Trump need to win. Know who's won here in Britain. So forth. Australia, looking at it. The Australian, their big newspaper. Americans head to the polls as hard-fought campaigns come to a close. America decides. Millions of Americans are heading to vote in a presidential election defined by drama and certainty. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump left to await the outcome of a desperately close race after months of intense campaigning. Close to call, while U.S. pollsters might have some explaining to do. There have been some pollsters kind of upset with their colleagues why some of these poll results are so close. They all within just 1 or 2 points of each other. So that's something that just doesn't really happen much with polls. So, say an electoral vote, what are they saying? Same thing they've been saying for months. Prediction, narrow win for Harris, taking Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Basically, all within the margin of error. Okay, so moving on. There are many different ways in which citizens can be involved with their government and official processes. For example, you can serve on a public board or public commission. Example here in Arkansas, governor.arkansas.gov. The governor will appoint people to several different positions. And all you need to do here is, just look right here. Online application for appointment. Governor is responsible for appointing members to boards and commissions in the state and seeks the most qualified candidates for these appointed positions. Encourages all Arkansans to participate in state government, applying to government police boards or commissions. Basically, simple oversight. Sometimes helping make policy. The online application for appointment. Here you can say how you're interested in serving, state agency, board or commission, governor's office executive staff. Select all. Go to next. Select board or commission here. Which boards or commissions are you interested in serving on? You can choose up to 5. These are all the different boards you can serve on. Amusement Rides Safety Advisory Board. That's actually important. Access to Justice Commission, the Agriculture Board, Beef Council, Biosciences Institute Board, Coalition of Juvenile Justice, Catfish Promotion Board. All you gotta do is just love catfish. Actual Commission, Corn Sorghum Production Board, Educational Television Commission, Ethics Commission, Fair Housing Commission, Medal of Honor Commission, honoring those who had the Medal of Honor. Soybean Promotion Board, Spinal Cord Commission, Tobacco Control Board, Board of Review, to review the boards, Boll Weevil Eradication Committee. That actually is an important thing for agriculture because the boll weevils cause a lot of damage to cotton crops. Criminal Detention Facility Review Commission staff, District 5, Cape Arkansas Beautiful Commission, Red River Compact Commission, State Crime Laboratory Board, Stadium Commission. Yes, I'm sure you can get discounts on tickets. But that's not why you do it. You do it to make sure that everything's being run properly. Make sure money's being spent properly. You're part of the oversight. You get because the idea is let the people see what's going on. Let the people have a say in what's going on. Make government accountable and answerable to the people. Get paid for these commissions? Most of them no. But they will compensate you for mileage and provide you free lunch. Okay, Arkansas History Commission. Next. And then joining, step 2.7, contact information. So forth. Marital status, single, married, divorced, current employer. Known by any other name? No. Registered voter? Yeah. Okay. Next. Educational history, employment experience, professional certificates. Previous board appointments or elected positions, special interest groups. They do tend to favor people who are sympathetic toward the party. Honors, legal history, citations, or issues. That could be important if you're going for the parole board. Upload your resume. Did you or do you currently serve the military? Member of the Reserves or National Guard, so on and so forth. Have you any time been a registered lobbyist? Yes, no. Business relationship with the potential conflicts of interest with the state. Citations. Not good citations, bad citations. Breach of ethics, professional conduct, etc., etc. Named a lawsuit, etc. Convictions, as in criminal, other than minor traffic offense. Are you in charges for any violation of the law? Position associations. You have expectation of any group or individual voicing concern about your possible appointment? Nah. Don't even know if I'm on the beef council. Delinquent taxes? No. Because remember, you're appointed to a state commission, especially something overseeing, say, the state treasury. You find out you're delinquent on your taxes. That could look bad. I'm overseeing conditions in state prisons on that commission, and I'm under indictment for something. That could look bad. Because while they do pretty much ask for pretty much anybody over 21 can serve on these commissions, the key here is don't embarrass anybody. That's kind of the unwritten official qualification. Last 5 years, public identified with particularly controversial national, state, or local issue. No, just a teacher. Method a school teacher. Submission of views. If you submitted oral or written views in addition to any governmental authority, whether executive or legislative, or the news media, a particular controversial idea or issue other than an official governmental capacity. No. Have you or possibly presently a party in any interest or administration agency or proceeding or civil litigation? Proceedings. As I said, you can actually work for the state, oversee some of these commissions, but it can't be related to the job you do. No. Association charters, no. Somebody said you're discriminate against people, no. Controversy, define controversy. But no. Organizations, clubs, associations, graphic information, et cetera, et cetera. Retired, yes, no. That's kind of it. Also, appointments for the federal level, and at the federal level, and at the local level. White House, administration can go to federal appointments, join the Biden-Harris administration. Basically, what you want to do, federal jobs, federal appointments, and so forth. Functions, desired policy areas of interest, desired department, agency, board, commission. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, they need people who are going to show up. And that's the important part of any kind of democracy is, are you going to show up? Voting is just one part of it, but serving on these commissions, sitting through these meetings, that's a big part of it. So also part of it. And anybody can do that. Contacting your elected officials about issues that are important to you. You don't have to be 18 or a registered voter to do that. Key is the government is run by people who show up. Decisions made by people who show up. So step up and show up. Also, something else. The notary public. A notary public is basically someone who witnesses a signature. And in Arkansas, yes, you can be a notary public too. Very easy. There are actually about 4 million notaries in the country today, registered by the different states. The term for about 10 years, and you have to renew it. But you can see where all the notary publics are. And this is how you go through the process here in Arkansas. You file, you file for it, fill out some paperwork. You have to get insured. But basically, this is paying like a $20 bond saying that, $50 bond saying that in case something goes wrong, you're not held liable for it. And then you got to take an online quiz. You have to go through a background check. But basically, pretty much anybody over 18 in Arkansas can become a notary public. And what does a notary public do is, this is it. You watch people sign something. You fill all these forms out, you get them notarized, you get it filed to the county, and what happens? Well, one thing, you get this really cool stamp with your name on it. Yes, I am a notary public. Republic for the next 10 years, and then I can file again and have it renewed. The commission expires September 4th, 2033, Kenneth William Bridges, Union County, Arkansas. So you get the cool stamp. You should also record your information. Who you notarized. The thing you cannot do though is you cannot give legal advice. You can say, now this is a little sketchy here. You might want to talk to somebody about it first, or but when somebody signs that, they show you their ID. You sign it, you stamp it, and you say, yes, I saw this person sign this. Why is that important? Forgery. Basically, as a notary public, you are a witness. That's an important deal. It's not as many things require things to be notarized as they used to, and yes, you can be what's called e-notary, that is, notarize things forms online. Can you be paid for this? Well, you're not supposed to charge money for it. You can. It's not illegal, but it's a lot of notaries say, okay, I'll notarize it $5, but that's not going to make that. You still have to go through the process of proving you are who you really are. You can sign your notation book, known to me personally. But yes, it's to make sure things like wills and contracts, a lot of student financial forms, real estate, signing loans and things like that. Yeah, things like that do need to be notarized. Say that, yes, you really did do this. You really did sign this. I really saw you sign this. Next, say, have there been problems, people forging signatures and getting the notary involved in it? Yes, that has happened before. There have been people who have forged signatures before, and the notary caught it in, was called in to testify in court to say that. But it is part of that process. And if you do want an office job someday, start in a professional setting, or even say you work in a hospital or a school as a teacher or administrator or something, it's very handy to have on a resume to say you're a notary public. We have a couple of them working for us here. That says it's in case we need a signature and someone to witness it, we got somebody we can do that here in house. But it shows you're a responsible citizen. And you got the cool stamp you can take with you.
After when you're done, or
Yeah, I could keep this for the rest of my life. If I never become a notary again, or you can even resign as a notary, I get to keep this stamp forever. You have to pay for your own stamp, but it's not that much actually. It can be a little cheap, little stamp, or it can be just one of these fancy self-inking stamps. It's just fun to have. Are you required to have a stamp? No. There's also one other little thing here. It's generally you're supposed to note you can only notarize within the state you're licensed to notarize in. So I can't go to Louisiana or Texas and start notarizing things. But because this piece of paper is stamped, that means it is official. It has been notarized. So yes, do become a notary. It's a very useful little thing. But of course, what is the most important part of democracy besides being involved? The next piece of the puzzle, the equation. Be what? Active. Very active. Join social organizations. There are all sorts of organizations looking for people to join up. Charities looking for people to volunteer. Professional organizations. Civic organizations. The Rotary Club meets every other Monday here in town at HealthWorks. It's a group of professionals. They have connections all over the world. And sometimes some of the most important people in the community are involved in that. So if you want to get to know these people and get to know other prominent people, join your local Rotary Club. They're trying to get the college version of that established here at the college, the Rotaract Club. And there they'll try to transition you into the big Rotary Club. Like I say, they do a bunch of things in communities. You go to a bunch of small towns and everything, you'll see like a Rotary Club Park, or Rotary sponsors this Adopt a Trails, Adopt a Street. Rotary will sponsor scholarships. In fact, the local Rotary Club actually does have a scholarship here at the college. The JCs used to be a big one. That was the Junior Chamber of Commerce for business professionals under 40. So all the young professionals got together, networked, and built up. Now you go to a lot of communities. There's a JC's park, JC's a baseball field, or something like that. You know, the annual punt pass and kick competitions. That's a JC's thing. Charity haunted houses at Halloween. Those are started by the JCs. Neat group of people. We used to have a real active chapter here, but we call it roostered out. We all turned 40. There's others. There's Civitan. There's Lions Club. But get involved. Show up. Show that you care. Yes, there's a practical aspect of being a member of Civitan or Rotary or JC's. That looks good on a resume. Being a notary looks good on a resume because one says one thing: you're responsible, you care, and people invite you in. Yeah, get involved. Be involved. The world is run by people who show up, and you can be part of those people who show up. At Rotary used to have a saying: "Friends don't let friends join Kiwanis," another civic club. So if you're interested, just find somebody who's interested and ask them. Go to their their Facebook page or something, and just ask them about it. Because they're always interested. But be involved, be active, also be informed. Media, the free press. The thing about the free press is, yes, you can print absolutely anything you want. Any opinion. You can decide what story goes first. It's most important. Actually, you can have a newspaper that today everyone else talking about the big election. What can your lead story be? A story about a horse on a farm can do math and do addition and subtraction. It can be about how bad the Joker sequel is, if you want, but it can be anything you pretty much want. As part of it, though, is finding out what's going on. So you have to actively seek out that information. Because real life is not like a classroom. The information is not to be given to you. You know, we don't discuss it back and forth. You have to go and find it. There's a lot of shady things that go on sometimes that politicians try not to talk about, but it takes reporters to dig through the records and say, hey, why'd you spend $50,000 on this contractor? Yeah, we're missing $1 million in tax money. Why? Things like that. Things that they're not necessarily going to talk about at a city council meeting. Something they're not going to go door to door and tell you. No, you have to find that out yourself. The best place to do that is your local newspaper. There's the problem how many people subscribe to a daily newspaper today. I do, but I grew up with newspapers. I'm used to them. And you will actually read news sites from newspapers or TV stations, radio stations. Your favorite radio station has a news broadcast. How long is it? About a minute, 2 minutes?
Podcast.
Yep.
Probably.
And how many people have podcasts about news in El Dorado, Arkansas? Not many. And podcasts, oh yes, it is an important part of free speech. People go down there getting their opinion, but the problem is this. Is their opinion anything, are they talking about anything that's useful? Or just what's fun to them?
Well, news places do have podcasts.
Some of them do, yes. But the thing is, you have to seek that out. There are some good newscasters have their little podcasts. Some people have their little opinion things, but you have to be very discriminating about that. If your podcaster is talking about the election 1 minute and then how UFOs are coming and mutilating cattle in the next segment, that may not be a very reliable source. Or how everything's a conspiracy because the cops stole their weed. No, that's not probably not a very reliable newscast or podcast. So in general, try to find someone who's a little unbiased. But you have to remember, unbiased and news you like, that's not the same thing. Let's look at it this way. World Press Freedom. Reporters Without Borders. Freedom Press in the World, 2024. And they say here that World Press Freedom Index, it's kind of a big annual report to kind of show the world just kind of the problems of press freedom. Press freedom around the world is being threatened by the very people who should be its guarantors, political authorities. This is clear from the latest annual World Press Freedom Index produced by Reporters Without Borders. It's available online at their website, rsf.org. This finding is based on the fact that of the 5 indicators used to compile the ranking, it is the political indicator that has fallen most, registering a global average fall of 7.6 points. So let's look at what we got here. Here's our scale. Green is good situation. Yellow satisfactory. Orange problematic. Orange, darker orange, difficult situation. Red, very serious situation. And let's look at what we got here. Press is really good in Greenland, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Estonia, Belgium, Ireland. Some problems here in Canada and most of Europe. U.S. listed as problematic. Still have Mexico. Press freedom Mauritania is listed as ahead of the United States. Australia is ahead of the United States. South Africa, Namibia. Taiwan. Press freedom in Russia and China, no, not very good there. I think we kind of expected that. Reporters have a tendency to fall out of windows in Russia. But somehow they'd never be able to report on window safety in Russia. There is no press freedom in North Korea. Middle East, yeah, it's pretty bad. Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Egypt, Sudan.
Is it pronounced that Yemen?
Yemen, yeah.
I always heard of it as Yemen.
Yemen. I don't know. I don't speak Arabic, so I'm not sure how exactly they pronounce it. I could be entirely wrong. You'd be wrong. They can pronounce it as Norphlet for all I know. India. So basically, most of Asia, there's very little press freedom in Asia. Except for little spots like Armenia, papers in Israel, Nepal, Thailand, basically on the periphery, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan. been this kind of problematic. Very little press freedom in Africa or South America. Problems here in the United States. Let's see more. Because while we do have the freedom of the press, that is guaranteed by the Constitution, how it is practiced, that's something else. Let's see the rankings here. Top country in the world for press freedom, Norway, followed by Denmark. Norway's only won over 90. Denmark, Sweden, yeah. You say, well, let's take a look here. Norway. Index in 2024, 1 out of 180, 91 out of 100. 2023, 1 out of 180, score 95. Political indicator, economic indicator, legal, legislative indicator, social indicator, security indicator. I'll kind of go into those as we go along here. But Norway's legal framework safeguarding freedom of the press is robust. The media market is vibrant, featuring a strong public service broadcaster and a diversified private sector with publishing companies guaranteeing extensive editorial independence. So basically, people can write and publish whatever they want. You have a lot of different owners, very healthy competitive environment. Yes, competition seems good among media organizations. A lot of strong legal protections. Uses in real time in Norway. Killed since January 1st, Norway, none. Detained as today, none. Let's go back to the list. Estonia, Portugal, Ireland is the top 8. Switzerland and Germany next. I say the deal is in Germany here. Why are they number 10? Okay, they've improved up in the world. They were 21 in 2023. They're number 10 this year. Political indicators, economic indicators, legislative indicators, social indicators, security. Although the overall legal environment is favorable to journalism, security law reforms have granted intelligence agencies broader powers to undermine journalists' fundamental rights. Furthermore, access to information is fragmented. Media pluralism has been threatened and violence against journalists is increasing. Because some people don't like what they're saying, so they're threatening journalists. They're worried about terrorism, so what does that end up doing? It means they sometimes information is often restricted. In some cases more so, some countries more so than others. And yes, the government does keep tracks on these. Biggest tabloid, as newspaper Bild, has lost a large share of its readership, much more than the quality papers as Süddeutsche Zeitung, which means the South German Times, a left-leaning newspaper, or Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, the Frankfurt Morning News, a conservative one, whose online versions have become increasingly popular. The broadcast sector increasingly both privately owned and public broadcasters, the latter, ARD, ZDF, and Deutschlandfunk, providing regional, national, and international reporting. However, media pluralism has been threatened by the closure of certain publications and massive job cuts in the big media companies. What these job cuts mean? It means fewer reporters to go out and find out what's going on. Political context. The role of the media as a pillar of democracy is widely accepted by politicians, with the exception of the far right. The German media maintain a long tradition of criticizing both the government and the opposition, with most newspapers having an editorial line close to one of the political camps. The independence of the public media is protected by law, while certain decisions have raised suspicions of political influence. Legal framework. Strong constitutional guarantees and independent judiciary ensure a generally favorable environment. Basically, they have their version of the Bill of Rights, and a judiciary that generally protects freedom of the press, freedom of speech. Compliance with ethical standards is encouraged by the Press Council, voluntary and self-regulatory body for print and online media. However, access to information laws are weak by international standards. That's not access to the laws, but laws saying you have access to information. We call it this country freedom of information. Also called sunshine laws. Security law reforms given intelligence agencies sweeping powers that seriously undermine journalists' fundamental rights. Parliamentary judicial oversight of the intelligence agencies is ineffective. Economic context. Many media outlets in Germany struggle financially, a trend that was exacerbated by the decline in advertising revenue during the COVID pandemic. Overall, the press is suffering from massive cost increases. The price of newsprint has doubled. It means expensive to print newspapers. And ink and printing plates have also become much more expensive. To intimidate journalists, large companies often use SLAPP procedures. It is, your big advertisers could boycott you because you're printing something they don't like. Sociocultural index context. Journalists are free to cover any topic, voice any opinion as long as they respect the Constitution. However, women journalists, journalists of color, and reporters covering topics related to gender and racism are the targets of increasingly violent attacks on social media. Journalists are also increasingly accused of being soft on government, especially by populist politicians who try to foment mistrust towards the media. Because you have to understand one thing. In an election, a free press has an important duty to keep the people informed about what's going on, who these people are who are running for office, and where and what their stand, and what their records are. But they are not going to run your campaign for you. What you have to say about yourself, what you have to say about your opponent, that's what the word you have to get out. You have to mobilize your own voters. But the media has a responsibility to say what is going on. As Orwell would say, the freedom to say 2 + 2 = 4. Freedom to say to speak the truth. Safety. Journalists have increasingly been targets of threats, harassment, and physical attacks, which are attributable to far-right actors, but also to those of the far left of the police, basically political extremists. And what do you know about political extremists? What's the closest point on the political spectrum? At the extremes. Extremists just want you to say just want reporters to say what they think is important, not free the press really isn't a big priority among extremists. Here's 2020, 21, 22 were particularly violent, especially during protests against COVID restrictions, where dozens of reporters were attacked. Although physical violence is prosecuted regularly, cyber harassment usually goes unpunished. Reporters covering protests are occasionally arrested. Said no reporters killed this year and none detained. Okay, that's Germany. Again, a little bit. Canada, they've moved up. Canada, 81.7, move up from 15 in last year. While Canada continues to demonstrate a strong commitment to international press freedom, protection, and practice, there's more room for progress, particularly with regards to press coverage involving the rights of indigenous peoples and land disputes. That's been a big deal in Canada. Two largest newspapers, the Globe and Mail and the National Post, circulate widely throughout the country. The largest radio and television broadcaster is the CBC, taxpayer funded, produces 2 hours of news daily, both local and international, and broadcasts a separate 24/7 news channel. And of course, lots available online. More than 80% of Canadian media, though, is owned by just 5 corporations. Why is that a problem for press freedom? When 80% is owned by just 5 corporations, why is that a potential problem? Yeah, they can shut down opposing views. They can collude on a press coverage and say certain stories, particularly certain negative stories about politicians they like, aren't going to be covered. For years, the federal government here in the United States, they had a rule that between major daily newspaper, radio station, TV station, you could only have interest in 2 of the 3. If you had got interest in a third one, you had to get rid of it. For example, Channel 5, the NBC affiliate in Dallas, first started broadcasting in 1948 out of Fort Worth. It's called WBAP. It was owned by the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and the radio station WBAP. You can actually hear that on radio sometimes at night, way out here in El Dorado. Well, the federal government said you got to have press freedom, so it means you have to have diversity of ownership. You cannot have a local media monopoly. So they told them, get rid of one of them. So Channel 5, they ditched the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And eventually they split it up. Radio stations owned separately, the TV station owned separately. But that's something that happened quite a bit. And for example, if a newspaper wanted to buy a competing newspaper in that city, sometimes the government would have let them do that. Why? Same thing. They didn't want a local media monopoly. Words of freedom of press. Go down here to United Kingdom, number 23, BBC, port broadcaster. United States. We've dropped 10. What's happened here? What's happened here in America? We're 45 last year, 71. Score 66 this year. Political indicator, 29, dropped 1. Economic indicator, 33, dropped 9. Legislative indicator, dropped 1, 41. Social indicator, 54, dropped to 11. Security indicator, 118. After a sharp increase in 2020, freedom of the press violations have fallen significantly in the United States. But major structural barriers to press freedom persist in this country, once considered a model for freedom of expression. Media landscape. While the mainstream media in the United States generally operates free from government interference, media ownership is highly concentrated, and many of the companies buying American media outlets appear to prioritize profits over public interest journalism. In fact, why do radio stations routinely, say, rock or hip-hop country stations, why they broadcast news, weather, and stuff like that? It's part of their broadcast license. That to show they're providing a public benefit, not just there to make money for themselves, but because that is a public resource, that frequency, they have to do something for the public, such as providing news and weather and stuff like that. But most media outlets are for profit. And what's the thing? What does a company want to do when they go into business? They want to make money. And what happens though because if you become overly concerned with making money and news journalism? Yeah. You you're afraid of making your customers upset. So, yeah, you start pulling your punches on certain news stories. You're not saying what the public needs here. You're telling what they think the public wants to hear. According to the college newspaper, the University of Texas in the 1990s, the Daily Texan, we had this guy who was a nationwide for his commentary on journalism, and was also a consultant. He said the problem with media in the 1990s was, he put it this way, he said, the question is, we have the sizzle, but where's the steak? Sizzle, but where's the steak? It is, got these hot stories to get people's attention. get people's attention. That was what we call today clickbait online, but no substance behind it. Have this really important story, really getting people's attention, but you're saying next to nothing about it. In journalism, what you're supposed to do, the first paragraphs they call the lead, you're supposed to basically summarize it. Who, what, when, where, why. And that's what you're supposed to cover in the first paragraph. But a lot of look at those clickbait articles online. How many of them don't do that? A lot of them don't. They go off on a tangent for like 4 or 5 paragraphs, past 4 or 5, 10 series of ads before they finally get to what they're talking about. That's what they're talking about here. Is they will cut back on number of journalists they have in a newsroom because that saves money. Yeah, I mean, you can get the same news from the Associated Press, from the news wires, but what about local coverage? Not a lot. I knew a guy who was a news director for a radio station. He was really frustrated by it because he went to the small town to be news director of the radio station, and they kept telling him, no, you can't run this story. No, you can't run that story. Because those were some of the biggest sponsors, and they didn't want their customers getting upset. So the corporation was telling the news director or the news department, don't cover these stories. Which is the opposite of press freedom. Of course, this brings us to the next question about press freedom, which is, you have the right to say whatever you want, but what happens when you don't own the press? Kind of a problem. In a diverse global media landscape, local news has declined significantly in recent years. A lot of local papers are shut down. The growing interest in partisan media threatens objectivity, while public confidence in the media has fallen dangerously. That's one thing. A lot of politicians complain about the newspaper. Why are they complaining about this policy and that policy? Usually after some politician gets his hand caught in the cookie jar, what's the first thing to do? Blame the reporters for it. Politician gets caught having an affair, cheating on his wife. Does he take responsibility for it? No, he blames the newspaper. How dare they say this about me that's absolutely true?
Did the president of New York, the New York mayor, did he say that? Did he say that? He got recently.
Yeah, really hasn't got arrested yet. What did he do? He blamed the media for it. Under the Nixon administration, where it really kind of starts, late 60s, early 70s, Richard Nixon and his vice president, Spiro Agnew, they routinely attacked the press. Because what was the press doing? It was asking questions about what is really going on in Vietnam. Thousands of our boys are dying. What are you doing about it? And Nixon was offended by that. How dare you ask me that question? That's a question. Okay, you're proposing this change, and this change. Why aren't you doing anything about it? Or why are you choosing this to do about it? That really offended Nixon. Said, these people are against me. These people are my enemies. How dare they do this? So a lot of people began blaming the media and a lot of people, they have what they call confirmation bias. They want to read the news that agrees with what they say. This politician is a bad person. He's a wonderful person. And the other people are lying about him. So people read that and say, yeah, I like this guy, so tell me more. Problem is, your viewpoints get distorted because you're only hearing one side of the story repeatedly. In a fair media environment, you should see both sides of the story. But remember, there's a danger here that we call both sidesism. Both sides are not always equal. For example, you're interviewing the astronauts on the International Space Station. Do you bring on someone who says the space program is a fake or the Earth is flat? No, because they're idiots. They have no credibility. You just talk to the astronauts. Yeah. They come up with a new vaccine to cure some disease. You have some guy who dropped out of high school and has been unemployed for the last 5 years to tell you that vaccines are some kind of conspiracy. No, you listen to doctors telling you what these vaccines are and what they do. Both sides. Ku Klux Klan marches through the streets. Do you necessarily interview the Ku Klux Klan? No. It means a good, solid, healthy balance. Cover the story for different angles. Find out different things for it. Because different supporters, they will emphasize, and different editors, they will emphasize different things. Growing interest in partisan media, that's a problem. At the tail end of the Civil War and later into the 19th century, we had a very partisan press in the United States. The major newspapers in large cities got a Democratic or Republican newspaper. That's why I have a lot of papers in the South named something Democrat, because they sided the Democratic Party on everything. Some up north have something Democrat or something Republican newspaper. But they moved towards objective journalism. They recognized they had a responsibility to do this. And they could be just as profitable by presenting multiple sides of a story, multiple viewpoints, giving voice to people who may not necessarily be heard in the community. Political context. 4 years of President Donald Trump's constant integration of his press, his successor, President Joe Biden, declared that journalism is not a crime. Despite this rhetoric, many of the chronic underlying issues affecting journalists remain addressed. And Biden himself has come under criticism for failing to press his partners like Israel and Saudi Arabia on press freedom. Legal framework. There's a growing push to revisit the landmark New York Times versus Sullivan decision. We talked about it a while back. It already shields the media from defamation lawsuits. The Press Act, a federal shield law aimed at protecting journalists and their sources, was narrowly defeated in 2022. It's still under consideration in the Senate. The U.S. government continues to pursue the extradition of WikiLeaks publisher Julian Assange, remains in detention in the United Kingdom, faced just on charges related to publication of classified documents. That's very controversial even among reporters. More than a dozen states and communities have proposed or enacted laws to limit journalists' access to public spaces, including barring them from legislative meetings and preventing them from recording the police. So I belong to a city commission, and by law, we have to advertise that meeting in the newspaper saying, official public notice, our meeting is coming up. And they usually send someone over from the newspaper. Does anyone ever attend our meeting? No. We would like them to, but they usually don't.
Do you think it's not advertising like what time it is?
Yeah, we advertise what time it is. It's on the internet and everything. We send out messages to people in the community, but they just and it's on the city website. But people just really don't come along.
Why do you think it is?
People just aren't interested.
What do you think would?
Well, change their app? I don't know. I really don't know. That's the thing with so many things. People don't want to read newspapers. People don't want to attend public meetings. People don't want to join civic organizations and clubs. There's a Netflix series about that documentary called Join or Die, talking about the decline of club memberships in the United States. Really interesting. You should watch it. But this apathy in the United States, people just don't want to join or do anything. And no one really knows. We know it's a problem. We don't know what to do about it. Yeah, we got our friends we talk to online, but that doesn't replace face-to-face contact. I say, well, how we change that, I don't know. All I would say is find a club, join it. Get involved, step up, make friends. Yeah, in Arkansas, they've been trying to change the freedom of information laws, trying to make sure that certain information does not get to the press. They haven't been able to pass the legislation yet, but it has been proposed. Economic context. Economic constraints have considerable impact on journalists. Roughly 1/3 of American newspapers operating in 2005 have now shuttered. While some public media outlets and radio stations in particular have been able to offset this decline thanks to online subscription models, others have found ways of sustaining growth through individual donations. Massive waves of layoffs swept the U.S. media throughout 2023 and have continued in 2024. And that's been a problem for years, affecting both local newspapers and major legacy outlets like the Washington Post, LA Times, Wall Street Journal, Sports Illustrated, NBC News, others. Over 3,000 jobs were lost in the news industry in 2023, the highest rate since 2020, and over 16,000 jobs were cut. It's getting to the point where, it's hard to get a job in journalism. Now, a couple of people run newspapers that are online, but it means they have to go out and hustle for advertising and actually go out and attend these events, take the pictures, do all the work themselves. Really good job, but it's hard work to do. Level of distrust in American media is unprecedented. The disinformation affecting American society has created an atmosphere where citizens no longer know who to trust. Online harassment, particularly towards women and minorities, is also a serious issue for journalists and affect the quality of their life and safety. And there's a troubling pattern of harassment, intimidation, and assault on journalists in the field. In September 2022, the Las Vegas Review-Journal reporter Jeff German was stabbed to death by a politician he was investigating. Dylan Lyons, reporter for Spectrum News, there's a case in Las Vegas. This guy was convicted of murder. They got so mad at the reporter covering him and all the stuff he was up to that the politician killed the guy. Politician killed the reporter. Big deal in Las Vegas. Spectrum News 13 Orlando was a reporter was shot covering a shooting in February 2023. Covering demonstrations, journalists are sometimes attacked and physically abused by demonstrators. So a reporter has also been arrested while covering such events. But killed this year, none. Detained, none. You don't see a lot of legal obstacles for reporters doing their job, except restricting information. The problem is concentration of media into fewer and fewer hands, and harassment by individuals. That is a serious problem. Some of the really bad cases here. Oh. Iran. They moved up from 177th place last year, out 176th. It reinforces its position as one of the world's most repressive countries in terms of press freedom, since a huge wave of protests began in reaction to the death on September 16th, 22 of a student arrested for being inappropriately dressed, basically dressed in Western dress. Iran is now one of the biggest jailers of journalists. Media is largely controlled by the Islamic regime. The main sources of news and information come from media outlets that are based abroad. Supreme leader can order the arrest of journalists and sentence them to long prison terms, even sentence them to death. Article 24 of the Iranian Constitution guarantees press freedom, but the 1986 Press Freedom Law allows the authorities to ensure that journalists do not endanger the Islamic Republic and not offend the clergy of the Supreme Leader, and not spread false information. Basically, they have freedom of the press, but they can't criticize anybody or report anything that might make somebody look bad. In other words, they really have no freedom at all. Detained as of today, 25. 25 Iranian journalists are in prison. Richia is the worst. It is, Richia is on the coast of the Red Sea, bordering Ethiopia. Surprisingly, less free even than North Korea. Let's take a look at North Korea. Yeah, they've moved up 3. How? Why? I don't know. Why does the others are just so bad? Korean Central News Agency, KCNA, is their official mouthpiece, the only permitted news source for North Korea's media. Tightly control all production distribution of information. The internet isn't even legal in North Korea. Article 67 of North Korea's constitution enshrines freedom of the press, but the regime systematically tramples on this principle. Basically, you have freedom, but you don't have freedom. It's just an illusion, just a joke.
So you can make it look good.
Yeah, just make them look good. That's why the official name of North Korea is the People's Democratic Republic of Korea. Is anything about it democratic, Republican, or favorable to the people, North Korea? No, nothing, not one bit. Generally, the more adjectives you have to add to republic, the less of a republic it actually is. People's Republic of Korea, communist dictatorship. Islamic Republic of Iran, theocratic dictatorship. And one of the worst dictatorships, the People's Democratic Republic of Korea.
We need a social
Yeah. 70 socialist republics. One media worker detained today. That's what we know of in North Korea. That's really, really bad there. Eritrea. Yeah, they've climbed to the bottom of the barrel since last year. The call of Eritrean society, the media are subject to absolute arbitrariness of President Isaias Afwerki, guilty of crimes against humanity, according to UN report from June 2016. There are no independent media outlets in this country. Sadly, notorious for detaining journalists longer than any other country in the world. All independent media have been banned since transition to dictatorship in 2001. No free media, nothing. It's all controlled by the government. Just what the government tells you to say. 14 journalists detained in Eritrea. Syria. Dropped from 175. In this country at war for more than a decade, reporters are denied access to entire swaths of the territory. The regime treats the media as a tool for disseminating Ba'athist ideology, that is the ideology of the dictatorship, and excludes any form of pluralism, driving many journalists into self-imposed exile. So a lot of people are on the run. 25 journalists in prison in Syria. Afghanistan. Dropped from 152. It's just getting worse and worse there. The Taliban takeover of this country, 40 million people, sounded the death knell for press freedom and the safety of journalists, particularly women journalists. Women aren't allowed to work outside the home, aren't even allowed to even be seen or speak outside the home. They have banned all images of people. They all know that's against Islam.
Wasn't there like a recent protest by a woman who took off a lot of her clothes?
That was in Iran, but
Oh,
yeah.
that was random.
But there were some protests by women when the Taliban took over, but they were arrested, severely beaten, some of them executed. Faced 3 months, 43% after the takeover, 43% of their outlets disappeared. More than 2/3 of 12,000 journalists in the country in 2021 have left the profession. And 10 women journalists have had to stop working. The few women journalists still working are subject to all kinds of restrictions. And since there probably no more anywhere. Restrictions and abuse. Afghan TV and radio stations no longer broadcast music. Women presenters must cover their faces. They can't even do that now. The economy, largely dependent on international aid, has collapsed. This has further undermined the media and made journalism even more precarious. Their independent media, which had survived during the past 2 decades thanks to foreign funding international projects, have been hit very hard by suspension of international funding. No one's sending any money in. Or detained that we know of. A lot of journalists there are just running for their lives. So that's press freedom. So the freedoms, remember, that exist in some countries that exist in the United States and other parts of the West just simply don't exist in some countries. That's a very serious issue, and we'll talk more about that in interest groups next time. Anything else? See you all later on.
Thank you very much.